The movie kicks off with a big fighting championship called Kumite. There are two masters, Shu and Wei, who are facing each other in the final match. They've been enemies for a long time, and after battling for nearly 6 hours, the match ends in a draw. The head judge decides they can send their students to compete again next year. No need for preliminaries. Fast forward 9 months, a team is out looking for talented fighters, sending out invites. They approach a fighter named Cassidy, who's invited to join the preliminary round happening in a week. Meanwhile, in Brazil, there's an aspiring fighter named Maria, and in Russia, there's a famous fighter named Vieta. The scene switched to America, inside a small restaurant. There's a waitress named Jane working that night. One of the male customers teased her and invited her to a farm, but Jane was having none of it. Another guy teased her too, but Jane didn't take it sitting down. She gave him a good beating. Cutting to the chase, Jane got fired from her job because of the fight. While heading to her car, she got attacked that night, but managed to make it home safe. She's got big plans though. She's off to Hong Kong for the Kumite competition's preliminaries. Turns out her dad used to compete there, but it's been 15 years since she went to Hong Kong. Jane said her goodbyes to her mom and set out on her adventure. Now Jane's in Hong Kong, hopping on a bus to get to the preliminary round location. Over at Master Shu's place, she's scratching her head because she hasn't found the right student yet. But Master Wei's been busy training a student named Ling, getting her ready for the Kumite competition without going through the preliminaries. Now let's get back to Jane. She finally arrived at the location, but she got a bit lost looking for the place. A young guy came up and offered to help, and Jane trusted him, not knowing he had ulterior motives. He led her into a trap, and things got dicey. Luckily, Master Shu happened to pass by and noticed what was going on. Jane followed them until she found herself in a quiet spot, where they planned to take her back and cause trouble. Jane, tired and all, couldn't put up much of a fight. Fortunately, Master Shu stepped in to rescue her. Jane also got a glimpse of her martial arts skills before she passed out. Moving on to the next morning, Jane woke up at Master Shu's house. She was impressed to see her so focused on cleaning. They had a chat, and Jane told her about her goal of joining the Kumite preliminary round in Hong Kong. However, Shu had a chuckle and said her fighting skills were still pretty basic. Master Shu then told Jane she could skip the preliminary round because she got to the finals last year. So they started training the very next day. In short, 2 months flew by, and Jane got a lot better at fighting. Meanwhile, Master Wei had a final test in store for Ling, and it was set for a month later. Ling asked what the test was, and Master Wei told her they were going out that night. Turned out, Master Wei wanted Ling to take on a bunch of young folks hanging out at a pub, and she wasted no time getting to it. Finally, a month passed, and it was time for the big Kumite match. Shu and Jane took a ferry to get there, along with 10 other fighters who made it through the selection round. Wei and Ling were there too. They all had to sign an agreement, basically saying they knew the risks, even the risk of losing their lives in the match. Master Shu showed up with Jane, and Ling noticed her teacher giving Shu and Jane sarcastic looks. Then, a guy named Zhang approached Jane and gave her his business card in case she needed anything. After that, the opening ceremony kicked off, and all the participants were called by the head judge. They got a warm welcome and were told to change into their match outfits because the fights would start in an hour. Suddenly, Master Wei came over and started picking on Jane, but Zhang stepped in to keep them from causing any personal problems in the match. So Jane went to change her clothes, and right away, Ling started teasing her. But Cassidy, one of the fighters, stepped in to break it up. Finally, the matches got underway. The 8 people who made it through today would move on to the semifinals tomorrow. Jane was up first, taking on a black belt taekwondo athlete from Korea. She managed to win and secure her spot in the next round. Next up, a boxer from Africa faced off against a pencak silat teacher from Indonesia. It was quite a surprise when the big boxer got defeated with just 1 kick. The matches continued, and each participant gave it their all. Next, there was a fighter from Russia named Vieta. She kept on fighting her opponents even after they gave up, causing injuries. The matches for the day ended with Ling from China facing off against fighters from Mexico. According to her teacher, Ling defeated her opponent quickly. The competition continued the next day. In the afternoon, Jane took a leisurely stroll on the beach and spotted the guy who had taken her bag. She followed him to their hideout, where Jane simply asked for a picture of her father with her as a child. However, the gang leader cruelly burned the photo in front of Jane. Jane could have easily beaten them up, being much stronger, but suddenly, Master Shu appeared and scolded Jane. He told her that the skills she learned should not be used for revenge, and then left her. That night, Jane fell asleep on the side of the road while looking at a photo of her father. The story then shifted to the next day, where the 8 survivors would be narrowed down to 4 in a round where they had to use weapons. Jane had her second turn in today's battles, and had the courage to ask about her father. The head judge responded, saying that her father had reached the final round but didn't show up for the final match. Jane remained silent and continued to fight, this time against Pencaksala teacher. Finally, Jane made it to the semifinals, but Cassidy had to face Vieta. In a surprising twist, Cassidy gave up and left the competition arena. However, unexpectedly, Vieta pulled her back in and managed to defeat her. In the next round, Jane had to face Vieta to qualify for the final, while Ling faced a fighter from Thailand and managed to defeat her. Then, the referee called Jane and Vieta to fight. The winner would face Ling in the final match tomorrow. Jane stepped into the ring to face Vieta. She was initially overwhelmed by Vieta's skills. Just when it seemed like Vieta had won, Jane made an incredible comeback. She managed to beat Vieta and qualify for the final, even though she was very badly injured. Suddenly, Zhang appeared and urged Jane to surrender. It was revealed that Zhang had killed Jane's father to win betting money. He didn't want to kill Jane like he had done with her father, especially seeing how injured she was. He knew she would lose. That night, Jane also went to Master Shu. Master Shu used her inner strength to help heal Jane, so she'd be ready to face Ling the next day. Meanwhile, Master Y felt confident that Ling would win because she knew Jane was badly hurt. The next day, everyone was surprised to see Jane had recovered so quickly. Zhang was worried he'd lose his bet because he had favored Ling. In the end, Zhang admitted he had acted unfairly by killing Jane's father for betting money, and he was immediately arrested. The moral lesson from the story is that in competition, it's important to have integrity and sportsmanship. Seeking revenge or resorting to unsportsmanlike behavior can lead to bad outcomes for everyone involved.